Um, I was thinking about a couple of the prayers um, when Diego was praying about the younger generations. There are some amazing statistics that I've heard and read recently about, like in the UK, Bible sales are up by 85%, and most of them are being bought by Gen Zers. And there's also stories about, lots of stories about young men just walking into churches off the street. So these are, I think these are signs of great hope. And I heard somebody say, our culture, our current culture, it's like our culture can't define anything, can't define what it means to be a man or a woman, can't define what it means to be married. And younger people are looking for answers. So I think there's actually such opportunity for fathers and mothers to rise up and be looking for opportunities to connect with younger generations and help them find meaning and purpose and what they're looking for in life. So uh, I thought that's kind of a wonderful thing to think about on Father's Day. Um, I've been for about 2 months, 2 to 3 months, spending time every day thinking about the prayer in Ephesians 3. And so I told John I'm not going to screen share at all this this week, but if you have a Bible and you want to follow along, you can turn to Ephesians 3, starting in verse 16, I think, but you'll find it. Because what I've been doing, there's something called, there's a practice called Lectio Divina, which is a way of reading the Bible, reading the scriptures that sort of takes you away from analytical thinking to, some people even say it should be called, Lectio Divina means holy reading. But some people say it should be called holy listening because it's taking a little portion of the scripture and really just sort of sitting in it and 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 asking God what he wants to say, what he wants to highlight for you, and then kind of listening and even responding. So with this prayer, I've been doing that, and I've ended up making it into a prayer for myself. And I want to share a bit of that with you this morning. So you can follow along in your Bibles, but I'm going to be saying the prayer. And so you're welcome to follow along or just listen and let God speak to you as we're going along. What is it that he really wants to say to you today? Does that sound like a plan? I hope so, because it's my plan. um, so Ephesians 3:16, I'm just going to check that that's the right one. Oh, nope, it's 3:14 that where the prayer begins. So Paul says, I bow my knees to the Father. But what I do is to start the prayer with Father, talking to my Father. And I thought, that's a great place to start on Father's Day. So, Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named. In the Bible, the father had the last word on what a child was going to be named. And they chose a name that spoke about the true identity and purpose, the identity and purpose that the Father had in his heart for that child. So we're named by the Father. And the name that he's given us is our true identity and purpose. I bet a lot of us have heard many things from many people about what they think our identity and purpose ought to be. But in God, we have a true identity and purpose. And interestingly, a couple of months ago now, I think, I was just talking to God and I'd heard people talking about like what their purpose was and how God had inspired them to start a ministry or plant a church or work among the poor. And I said, God, what's my job? That's literally the words I used. What is my job kind of for you? And you know what I heard? I heard in my spirit, your job is to be loved. My job is to be loved. And I was like, at first, that's not a job. That's not a job. But it just kept being there in my spirit. And so I've taken it to heart. I I am practicing things in my life that will open me up to receiving his love and being loved. And in the process, I've realized how many places in my life I'm not really aware that I'm loved, how much time in my life I spend not realizing, not living in the reality that I'm loved. So anyway, that's my current, like that's the little glimpse that God has given me right now, kind of saying, want to work on this, Ellen? Want to work on this part of your first identity, your true purpose and identity. And think about it. Imagine if each one of us on this call really, truly lived moment by moment, day by day, believing I am loved by God. We would, like, you know how sometimes somebody walks into a room and they lift the atmosphere of the room just by their presence? Imagine what we would do. Just walking in, knowing like that we're loved. But we'll see more about this later on. Okay, so Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth gets its true purpose and identity. That's how I start the prayer. Then grant me, and the word in Greek there for grant is to give, like to give a gift. So I'm asking God to give me a gift. What do you need to do to receive a gift? Do you need to do any work to receive it? No. No. A gift is like if you had to work for it, it wouldn't be a gift, right? So I might ask for a gift. Like we had my grandson's 4th birthday yesterday, and I asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and he said, a Chinook helicopter. So I got him a Chinook helicopter. I don't know why specifically a Chinook, but that's what he wanted. But other than that, he didn't need to do anything. I just got it for him. So I'm asking God to give me this gift, which I don't have to do anything else to earn. What is the gift? To be strengthened with power through his Spirit in my inner being according to the riches of his glory. I just want to take that last phrase, according to the riches of his glory, and put it at the beginning. So I'm asking him to give me according to the riches of his glory. What are the riches of his glory? What does that even mean? Do you have a picture in your mind of what the glory of God is? Have you thought about that? Uh, for me, a lot of times I see glory in nature. So I live in this beautiful house on this beautiful land that has been a gift from God. And in the late afternoon, early evening now in summertime, the 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 sun, like, just, I've got a pond right out in my yard and woods beyond that and trees in my yard, and the light is like gold, and it streams through the leaves, and it's like everything is etched in gold. And I think that's the glory of God, that, like, pure golden light that is flooding me and everything around me. Or sometimes an amazing sunset or cloud formation will just take my breath away with the glory of God. Then you can go much bigger. Like, how about the Grand Canyon or the Rocky Mountains? Or if you've ever been by the ocean on a really stormy day, just the power of the waves and the wind, amazing. So it's like, mm, this gift, this gift that I'm asking for is going to be given like according to the measure of the glory of God, so far beyond what I could imagine or really ask for on my own. So, wow, how cool is that? Getting a gift that's according to that measure. So, then to be strengthened, made strong, pretty self-evident, by power. That word power is the word dunamis in Greek. And dunamis means power that is like in an object and then exerts itself. So there's something like for instance, a river has power. Like, as it moves, it has power. And you can act, and it exerts that power. Like, you can see it in rapids, or you can see it, if there's like a big storm and stuff's just being carried down that river, logs, t- things can be washed away and just taken down the river. Um, the ocean, same way. So power is, and it's being exerted when the river is, for instance, tumbling rocks over or carrying stuff down it. So I'm going to be strengthened with that kind of power through his Spirit in my inner man. So it's the Spirit. It's the Spirit. It's like God has this measure of glory, and that measure of glory is going to be poured through the Spirit into me to make me strong in my inner being. What's my inner being? Well, I think it goes back to the true identity and purpose that God gave me in his when he named me before the foundation of the world. So I'm going to be that true identity in me is going to be made stronger. And that's what I'm asking for. I'm saying, God, through your Holy Spirit in me, strengthen that true purpose and identity in me according to the riches of your amazing glory. Pretty big ask, isn't it? And yet, we like he's this is what's written in his word. This is what he's asking us to ask for through the words of the Apostle Paul for ourselves. Okay, let's go on to the next phrase. So the next phrase is that Christ may dwell in your hearts through, then, well, I say that Christ may dwell in my heart through faith. Here's another really cool Greek word. The word dwell is the word kat-oikeo, which oikeo is to live in a house, to dwell, to have a house, to have a home. And when you put kat in front of a word, it it means to do something thoroughly. So this prayer is that Christ may feel completely at home in my heart. That Christ may feel completely at home in my heart. Now, we know Christ is already in us. When we got born again, we got Christ in us. But does Christ feel completely at home in every part of my heart, in every area of my life? Does he feel completely at home with me every moment of the day? I mean, I don't know if you've ever stayed in a place where, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Uh, like if I stay in a home of people I don't know very well, or how about this? Airbnb. If I rent a room in a house, Airbnb, I feel completely comfortable in that room. But I don't feel comfortable in the other rooms of the house because it doesn't belong to me. Um, and if I think of my heart as a house, I think, boy, there are rooms in that house that are pretty dark, pretty musty, pretty cluttered. I don't think Christ would feel at home in every room of my heart. But as I get strengthened with power through his spirit in my true identity, there's going to be more and more of my heart that he's completely at home in. And there's going to be more and more time in my life where he feels completely comfortable. Like, for instance, right now, if I'm driving someplace and somebody cuts me off, I don't think Christ would feel completely at home in my heart with the attitude that I sometimes have in those situations. Um, so I want, I want Christ, I want to be living in such a way that he feels completely at home with me, like we're best friends. We're just going through life holding hands. And how does that happen? The end of that phrase, that Christ may feel completely at home in my heart through faith. I often, when I read the word faith, like to put in the word trust. And there are actually translations of this prayer that in that section use the word trust instead of faith. So Jesus Christ will feel completely at home in my heart as I trust him. And there are areas of my life where I don't. I I don't trust him yet. Or sometimes I catch myself. I can give you an example. Um, I have a grandson who has a rare neurological condition, and he's 4. Not the one whose birthday party was yesterday, but another one. And so he was in the hospital for several days, a month or so ago, and they took some pictures of his brain. And uh, a week after the hospital stay, they showed my daughter and son-in-law a picture of Emerson's brain that they had taken in his recent hospital visit, and another picture of his brain from 2 years ago. And the pictures side by side showed that there has been progressive calcification in Emerson's brain. Calcification isn't a good thing. And so it was really hard for my daughter and son-in-law to see that. And my daughter showed me a screenshot of the pictures, and it's hard for me too. And so that, like in the wee small hours of the morning, I was lying in bed and thinking about that, and my heart was heavy. And then I realized, because I've been praying this prayer, I realized, God, I'm not trusting you in this area. I'm not trusting you. Help me. Help me trust you. And oh my gosh, I got this picture of Emerson as an adult talking to a group of people and saying, I know what God can do. I know what God can do. Now, Emerson's parents are not in a place where they're teaching that stuff to him. But God showed me that picture, and I have complete confidence that that was God's way of helping me trust him, that he's got this situation. And so when I have trouble trusting God, if I see an area where I'm not trusting him, I can ask for help if I need it. And another really cool story that might be helpful to some of you, I think of the prayer, uh, some of the prayers about healing for people. I heard a guy speaking couple of weeks ago. He started a place called the Healing Rooms at a church called Bethel in Redding, California. And God inspired him to start healing rooms where people could come and get healed of diseases. And he got a team of people who wanted to do this with him. And um, and so they started praying, God, send us critical cases because we want to see big miracles. And then they opened the rooms and critical cases started coming and they weren't getting healed. So this guy talked to God and he said, God, what's going on? You told me to do this and it's not happening. And and in God said, you got to get your eyes off the problem and onto my goodness, onto my goodness. And so they just started spending, this whole team would get together in these healing rooms and they would just worship God. They would pray, they would listen to worship music, they would just focus on God's goodness. And after, I don't remember the time framing exactly, but it was at least a couple of months. After a couple of months, they started seeing crazy healings, like amazing stuff. So once they were really focused on the goodness of God, the trust was there. And that was another thing that God did to help me understand this is how I can trust you so that Jesus Christ can feel completely at home in my heart by focusing on your goodness instead of on the problems. Okay, one more phrase I really want to go into. The next phrase. So, that Christ may feel completely at home in my heart through faith, that I, being rooted and grounded in love. For me, these are great mind pictures. What does it mean to be rooted in love? If you think about a tree and the roots of the tree, what do? They go down into the soil and they bring nourishment up into every single part of the tree. I want every part of me to be nourished and sustained by love. That's like my blood. You know, I learned recently that there's not one cell in your body, except maybe your hair, but not one cell that isn't beside a capillary that can bring blood to it, every cell. And so when I imagine being rooted in love, I imagine love coming up and that there's not a cell in my body that's not touched and nourished by love. How cool is that? Isn't that a great picture? I mean, that's that's how I want to live. That's how I want to be living. And grounded is set on a foundation. It comes from the word for foundation, like Christ is the foundation stone, or like your house is on a foundation so that it won't, blow away or fall over. So I want to be nourished and sustained and founded, like established on love so that I won't be rocked. So, like I said, I've been doing this for a couple of months, and I feel like though all that prayer to hear, it's like kind of really living in me. I want to go through the rest of the prayer, but not in so much detail, because to be honest, I don't feel like I've gotten the rest of the prayer in the same way that I've gotten what I just shared with you. But the rest of the prayer is, okay, so I'm rooted and grounded in love so that I may be able to comprehend is the word that many translations use. It actually means to mentally grasp. It doesn't mean to be able to understand or explain. It just means I kind of get, like I get it. I I have an idea of what? Of the breadth and length and height and depth of the love of Christ. The way I think about this, it's like, how big is the universe? Oh, the love of Christ is it's wider, it's longer, it's higher, it's deeper than the whole universe. The love of Christ is bigger than the universe. I I can get that, but I can't explain it or really understand it. Um, to so to be able to grasp what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know, and that word is that experiential knowledge, to know the love of Christ, which surpasses knowledge, experiential knowledge. Another one of those things. Like, how do you explain that or even really understand it? I feel like I'm catching glimpses of that. I feel like there's times when it's almost like you get lifted out of yourself because there's this love that is just so big and so far beyond you. But it, for however long, it's like you're changed by it. And I think even those moments, like in those moments, God is taking part of you and really transforming it to look more like him. So to know the love of Christ, which surpasses knowledge, that I may be filled with all the fullness of God, actually means that I can be filled more and more with the knowledge. So it's not like I'm ever going to get to the fullness of God, more and more. And so I think of this whole prayer as a process and not necessarily a linear process. Like the first step has to be that I'm strengthened with might by my spirit in the inner man. And the second step is, and the third step is, it's like, but it is this whole process of, of, of God giving me this amazing gift simply because I've asked, of, of all these different ways of becoming more and more loved so that I have that love to give to others, so that to become more and more mm, trusting, so that I can, uh, I can lead others who want to be able to trust more, to become more and more filled with dunamis so that others can receive that. And from maybe from me, but also from God. So, my prayer for you all is that that God is already doing this in you, which I believe He is, because I think, as soon as we got born again, He started this process. But my prayer for you is that somehow this time together has given you an insight or given you an invitation to ask, maybe for more than what you've been asking for, of His gift of love and power and the presence of Christ. And maybe has given you a greater desire to be able to live in a place where Christ is completely at home in your hearts. And so just want to thank you for your time and to speak God a blessing over you from God, because he loves every one of us beyond what we can even imagine. So thanks for letting me share.